What does it look like to be deeply rooted in Christ in a world of cultural chaos? Welcome to the Equip Podcast. I'm Mark Vance, the lead pastor at Cornerstone Church of Ames, and each week we want to look at core biblical truths that will equip you to live a life of faithfulness, to be salt and light wherever Jesus has called you. Well, I have a very special guest for the Equip Podcast here with me. Guys out there, many of you who are watching online will know this face. This is the man, the myth, the legend, Shane Rothlisberger, pastor of the Acreage Church, which that is wild to say. And so what Shane and I want to tell is a little bit of just this, I don't even know quite how to condense this into 20 to 25 minutes of just the story of what God is writing in Northeast Iowa through a church plant we never expected to be sending out from Cornerstone Church, from a church you never expected to be pastoring in Northeast Iowa. And so we're going to tell a story of this, and then also just a bit of a prayer like, man, God, what do you want to do with this? Do you want to do more? And so, Shane, let's start first with a little bit of try to give us like the 2 to 3 minute version of how does this church plant in Northeast Iowa even get started?
Yeah. Great to hang out with you,
yeah,
Mark.
You
Thanks
too,
for the
man.
invite here. Yes.
We're going over to cook, like grill out after this. Our sons are going to be rooming together at Iowa State.
It's all crazy.
It is a surreal
crazy.
moment
Yeah.
for Shane and I.
Yeah. All right, 2 to 3 minutes. I thought I was going to be at Cornerstone forever. We had a series of events in our life that we were navigating that in some ways dislodged us. The main one being my dad got sick and just felt compelled to move, to be close to them. We didn't expect church to be a struggle where we were moving, and unfortunately, it was. We struggled significantly to get plugged in to a local church, and after months and months of kind of floundering, we were just extremely homesick, and so we decided we needed to hear from our pastors, and that was you, that was Troy, our good friend, our mutual friend, Drew Stevenson, up in Minneapolis, at, one of Cornerstone's church plants. And so we queued up the live stream from Cornerstone in the living room of our house, and we worshiped and lamented as a family. And it was really, really hard, and it was really lonely. And we did that for a few weeks. We knew it wasn't a long-term solution, but that was the need of the hour. So we were doing that, and then it wasn't long after that, another family asked us what we were doing for church, and we explained that. So they joined us, and then within about 8 to 10 weeks, we had about another 30 to 40 people joining us in the living room of our house. And it kind of took off from there. It did take us a long time to, give up the kind of reluctance to call it what it was, a church plant, but that's where we're at.
I remember like having conversations with you from time to time in this where you'd be like, well, we got, 80 to 100 people who show up in our living room, and I don't quite know what this is. And I remember thinking, well, I'm pretty sure we both know what this is, right?
I didn't want to admit it. I really did think, Mark, that the Lord had called me out of vocational ministry. I didn't know that it was permanent, but I thought it was indefinite. And so then all of a sudden we have this flock in our living room, and we were like, is this foster care? Is this adoption? Like, what is this? Are we just trying to create a place where people can kind of heal and connect? But then the Lord started bringing unchurched people, and people started getting saved. People started getting baptized, and we're like, there became a distinct moment where I like put on my elder hat, and I said, what is this? It's like, okay, this is a church. This is a church plant, and it needs a shepherd. And so then I was resolved for us to find a shepherd and a pastor. And one morning I'm sitting with the Lord and kind of laboring over this, and I happen to be in John 21, and it's Peter's reinstatement. And I've only had a couple of times in my life where I felt like the Lord was pretty, in an unusual way, ministering to me explicitly. And that morning it was, Peter, do you love me? You know I love you. Feed my sheep. And it was on the third time, and all of a sudden I was like, Lord, are you asking me to pastor this? Like, I don't. I don't want to. I felt called out of vocational ministry, but eventually it was, all right, Lord, if that's what you're asking of me, I'm willing to do it. And then as soon as we said yes, then it was like the Lord took away the reluctance, and it was like, okay, now there's a flock to be cared for. And then things got really crazy.
So that's the part of the story that we're going to explain a little bit here, because some people will have heard like the story of, okay, so there's that. You end up approaching the elders at Cornerstone. We love you guys, and thought, I mean, Shane, I remember when somebody brought it up to me, like, what do you think about Shane and this church being like a church that we would send out? I think I cried the first time. I thought, I'm like, oh, it's just so beautiful. Yeah. It's like, I love you guys. Like, oh my word, this is like a dream come true to continue that connection. And now, like, okay, maybe give it a snapshot. Like, people who haven't been up to the Acreage Church, what is like a typical Sunday in the life of the Acreage Church look like? If I'm coming to it, is it still in your living room? Like, where are you now for the Acreage?
Yeah. So last fall, we knew we needed to get out of our house. We had a day where we had 94 people packed in. We had 3 baptisms in our front yard. We literally bought a stock tank. It's parked in our front yard. People driving by like, what kind of cult is going on? And so we knew we needed to find a place. So we started the process, long story short, of renovating a space at a local event center that would become our auditorium. We moved into there sometime in February, and so a Sunday morning, and this has been a staple even when it was in our living rooms. We gather, we have live worship, and so I usually lead the worship, and then we started off curating teaching series from the network, and primarily Cornerstone and Redemption, and then when we called it a church plant, we approached Cornerstone about being our sending church. Then we kind of locked in with your teaching series. And so we've trailed 1 week behind you. Yep. And the majority of the teaching comes via video, 1 week delayed from you. So what I do is I kind of shepherd our people. I contextualize it, and I tee it up. One of the things that they're pretty used to me saying is, this isn't just a random video we're queuing up. This is a family that we belong to. I said Mark's a super dear friend. We got to pastor together for a decade, and so I give some context there, and then I'll usually try to take, if you're talking about Iowa State University, I'm going to translate it to our local high school or to Upper Iowa University up there, and help people think through, okay, so this is what it means for us in this context, close in worship, and then we've always had a meal.
You still do the meal now?
We still do the meal.
I love
Someday
that.
we probably won't.
Yeah. But it's cool while you can.
Yeah, it is. It's really cool. That became it's almost like that was our small group time or our connection group time. So after every worship gathering, we would just always have a meal. It started in our home. We moved into the building. We also continue that going. People hang out for a long time, awesome. Just chatting, eating good food, and
dude, I love that. I mean, both of us have like a soft spot for like small town country church type of vibes. So like hanging out.
It's in our DNA, Mark. It's like we didn't choose it.
We're just born into this as Iowa kids, So Shane, do you think like for people who are there, I'm always curious of like, how does it translate? I mean, Cornerstone is this church in Ames. We've got Northeast Iowa. I know there's probably some work of translation that's going on there. And I'm getting used to, in my head, like when I'm prepping to preach at Cornerstone, I'm only thinking about the room in front of me. Yeah. But now I have a cheat sheet where I'm working through vision. I'm like, and one of the things on there is remember the acreage. Love these people. And it's like this growing heart of like, I'm an Iowa kid. And I have this vision of the SALT network, but now it's like God opening this door to something. None of us, we didn't know to pray for this. Yeah. It was just like, well, we got to be obedient to the thing, I guess. Yeah. And now we just announced at our members event, Seth, who's joined our team, who's a church planner prepping to go back to a rural community in Iowa. Yeah. What do you see from that angle, Shane? Yeah. Like, rural Iowa and the needs there. Yeah. Talk a little bit about what you're seeing in terms of the need for church in rural Iowa.
Yeah. Well, Mark, after being in this context for a total of 16 years, 12 years pastoring, like we love the SALT network. We love the
goodness,
vision for University Church Planning. We were grieving being removed from university life. You know, it's we love it. And so to come into a rural community again wasn't our vision or even our heart necessarily to reach it. But what's true is half of the world's population live in rural communities, and so 3.5, 4 billion people.
Wow.
And when we left, when we moved to Ames in 2010, I would have characterized our community up there, which I think is pretty characteristic of a lot of rural Midwest communities. It's overchurched and unreached. And so most families, and I don't have stats to back this up. It's just kind of I don't know. It's an observation. There's multiple churches in every small town, and most people are on a church roster somewhere, but not a lot of gospel witness. Just 12 years later, when we moved back, I would say that there's been a generational turnover where it is more unchurched and unreached.
Wow.
Where the rosters are primarily aging out, and people in my generation and younger are, it's just irrelevant. They're not hostile. Actually, not hostile towards the church at all. It's different than maybe some of the more progressive communities across the country. It's there's not a hostility there, but it's an irrelevancy. It's
a great observation.
And I think that. It's super common to worship at the altar of youth sports on a Sunday morning as opposed to what would have been tradition to go to church. And so the need is there. And there's just people aren't going there. Like it's really hard to, from a business sense, like it's hard to attract talent, right? It's hard to attract people with a heart for the gospel, with the tools to take it there, the Spirit of God living in them to take the gospel to places that really need it. And I didn't choose to go there. It wasn't my plan. It wasn't my purpose. It wasn't my prayer. I didn't pray for it. But the Lord orchestrated some really, call them catastrophic events in our life to dislodge us from what was my plan, put me in that place, and then show me a field that was just ripe unto the harvest.
The observation you have of the movement from overchurched to almost unchurched. I do think there's a parallel. We've talked recently in the Awakening series about the rise of the nuns. Where there's no religious affiliation, that there's this gigantic surge. It parallels also, though, a decline of, if you look at rural Iowa, Illinois, these farm communities, a lot of them were driven by the Swedish evangelical church, or you have the Dutch Reformed church. You have so there was an immigrant church. It was tied in, and they were typically denominationally linked. There was a Baptist church, a Lutheran church, a Methodist church. So what's happening, I do think, across the country is denominational affiliated, particularly mainline denominational affiliated churches have had two trends. One is a lot of them have just lost the gospel, especially in rural communities. That I was so disheartened to look at some of the stats where you're like, there's just not faithful gospel preaching in these places. But then two, a lot of them just simply their membership average age is 65. So our parents' generation kept their membership, and our generation watched their parents' age and went, this is completely, the word irrelevant is a great word. They're not antagonistic. They just go, it's irrelevant. It doesn't connect to anything. And that's hard for rural communities too, because those churches weren't just the center of church life. They were the center of how did people know people and connect to people and stay connected as a community. There's a huge loss.
And I know to add to that, I know a couple of pastors up there who do know the Lord, who have a faithful gospel witness, but resources are in such short supply. They're pastoring 2-3 churches.
Yeah, for sure.
And so, preaching multiple contexts and then expected to continue to carry in a significantly aging population in all of those churches, which come with tremendous needs, huge pastoral needs. Huge. And I look at a guy like that and I'm just like, man, my heart breaks for the burden that he's carrying with the limited resources available to him. And so, yeah, the need is tremendous. Yeah. And I what we're seeing, and again, I don't know, this is just our story, but like people are coming to faith. It's
for sure.
We, like at our Easter service, we had 175 people at our Easter service, and we had 4 baptisms. 2 of them were local university students, small university up there with about 500 residential students. Wow. And 2 of them were university students who had given their lives to Jesus earlier that year. One of them was one of the guys was he was a neighbor of ours that ended up coming to our when it was still in our house. His wife had connections to Cornerstone and to Keystone. Yeah, they lived right down the road from us, and then he ended up being the electrician on our building remodel, and he got baptized at Easter. This is so cool, like awesome. Just incredible stories, and yeah,
I love it.
Yep,
I love it. So you would say, average Sunday, how many people are coming out to the Acreage now?
Yeah, I mean, yesterday was I would call it like what you would expect to be a lower day. We had 135 there, and our room seats, probably 175 max.
Yeah,
that we just remodeled, put all this energy into, and we're gonna have to go to 2 services here at some point.
I just think that's it's a flaw of vision, Shane. You need a bigger vision.
I mean, clearly,
It's this whole ride of like I was just talking to Troy today, and we were rehearsing the story of how the first church plant that went out to Iowa City went. And none of us are thinking with long-term vision. It's just pure, well, that sounds like the next right idea.
We got out of our
just try to figure it out.
We got out of our living room, and we're remodeling space, and we're like, look at how huge this is. And it's like, this is going to be incredible. It's going to serve our needs forever. We were in for like 2 weeks. We're like, it's too small. Like, this is catastrophic.
Shane, what a glorious problem to have in rural Iowa. And so here's like where we're at Cornerstone is we don't know. This was not an anticipation. I just am delighted as a friend because I get to hang out with you at random intervals now. Again, I love it. But now it's become this like weird. It's not just that community in Northeast Iowa. We just keep having pockets of people who are, hey, we're live streaming in our house because we don't quite know what else to do. Yeah. And is there anything we could do? And so we're thinking, we don't know what this needs to be, but now we've got a guy, Seth, who's prepping to go back as a planter to rural Iowa. Yeah. And we're wondering, maybe this is something that in God's kindness, just like that Salt Network thing, it was like we couldn't see what he was doing. Yeah. Yeah. And so we just tried to do the next right thing. Yeah. A lot of times, I think vision that really becomes sticky, you don't like come up with it on a whiteboard. You just like, you try to obey the next thing that God has in front of you and you do it. And man,
that's what it has felt like, Mark. And you hear Troy tell all the stories of like we didn't build this room or this auditorium because and then think if you build it they will come. You were just responding to what was happening, and that's what I say. There's been zero vision. Like I zero vision. And honestly, I would even say like very little prayers, like maybe as a testimony to the state of my heart and the lack of desire to even do this. I say like we didn't even pray for this. So many stories of church plants happen out of people have just labored in prayer, wanting to see a harvest. And I'm like, I didn't pray for this. I didn't ask for this, and which is a conviction. Yeah. But it makes me want to pray for the next place.
Yeah, for sure.
Because if this is what the Lord wanted to do without vision, without praying, without like, what might He do if we say, "Hey, let's be intentional about taking the gospel to some of these, more underreached rural communities."
Well, that's a great landing spot, man. What a great prayer. So, next time that rural Iowa report comes out, looking at the drought in this section of the state of Iowa, you're listening to farm reports on WHO. that's a place to pray for church planting.
Amen.
It really is.
Yeah.
The harvest is plentiful. Labors are few. And so, Shane, what a privilege to say, I love you, and man, the labor God's letting you do. Who knew? How good is God? What an incredible thing to be with him and to be so proud of what he's doing and praying for you and grateful for you, brother.
We're so grateful for the partnership with Cornerstone, Salt Network, and Lord, do it again.
Amen and amen.